Hey, Cancer Warriors. My name is Tonya, and I'm here with Power Pantaloons podcast. We have a special guest with us today. Shira, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, today we're going to talk about your cancer journey, but you don't like the word journey, do you?
No, I don't. I actually hated that the most out of everything.
Cancer story, cancer adventure,
I just call it my cancer cameo.
cancer cameo. So, walk us through it. Do you want to start with the beginning or do you want to start somewhere in the middle or?
I will be happy to start wherever you want to hear. I mean, the beginning really started with a phone call on the morning of May 13th, Friday, May 13th, before I had coffee. So, good
Oh,
morning.
what a horrible way to start a day.
So, you know, obviously I had found a lump. I had gone for a biopsy with me not thinking anything of it, the doctor not thinking anything of it. Everything was going to be fine. It was going to be great. And then I get this phone call and find out that no, not so much. The doctor was as shocked as I was. And the conversation went from there, like with a lot of holy shit, are you serious? Do I have the bad kind? Like now what?
Yeah, absolutely. Now what? How did you like for a lot of people, like me included, when my doctor said you have cancer, everything after that was Charlie Brown's teacher, womp 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 womp. Did you actually experience something like that, or was it different for you?
No, it was different. She and I were both in such shock, and the weird part about it was is that my appointment with her a few weeks prior, um she was asking me if she's like, you didn't go for a mammogram last year. Are you afraid? And I said, no, I'm not afraid. I've just been fucking busy. Like I said, but I'm scheduling one now. And I said, plus I don't have time for cancer. I don't want to lose my hair. I just got it to do what I liked. And we went into this whole conversation. She said, well, you don't have to lose your hair anymore. There's cooling caps. I said, what's a cooling cap? And she tells me all about the cooling cap. And there's this device you can get that freezes your head. And it's as pleasant as it sounds. And we talk all about it. And I said, okay, great. If I ever get cancer, I'm going to do that. And we were laughing about it. Like we were joking about it because there
Yes.
was just no way. And a few weeks later, we're in the holy crap, we were just laughing about it. Let's never do that again.
Right.
And there you have it. But I really honestly, and I've been thinking about this a lot. Um, my reaction, once she gave me a bunch of numbers, you want to call here and do this and do this. She gave me the steps, I wrote it down. Once I got off the phone with her, I literally, and I remember it vividly, like I looked up at the sky and I laughed. I said, I see you, universe. I said, okay. I said, touche, because I had just been talking to somebody not long before about how much over the past couple years, uh, throwing myself into personal development and working on receiving and really, really feeling grounded and getting back to myself. And I was like, I got this. Like I really feel like I've done all this work, like I'm in a great place. And now all of a sudden, the universe like throws me this test, and I was well aware of that, what was going on the second I hung up the phone. Like I laughed, like I was like, all right, let's go.
Mm, yeah. I just, yeah. All right. So, what was the treatment plan?
So my treatment plan was, you go for a bunch of tests and meet everybody first. And my treatment plan was lumpectomy with lymph node removal. This was the suggestion. Chemo, radiation, and immunotherapy. And they give you the choice. Do you want to have surgery first or do you want to have surgery after chemo? And I chose to have surgery first.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the official diagnosis?
It was, I believe it was invasive ductal carcinoma.
Carcinoma. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So walk me through the fun. The the fun. Tell me about, your first. So you had the lumpectomy.
I had the lumpectomy and I was most annoyed about cancer because it was interfering with my summer beach plans. And so I really felt annoyed and inconvenienced by it. So I had the lumpectomy in I was diagnosed May 13th. I had my lumpectomy July 1st. 10 days later, I got in the car, was still, and they put in, I was gonna say installed, they implanted the port,
The port.
which is for me, that was a really awkward, difficult thing. So 10 days after surgery, I put myself in the car and I took myself to the beach. And I just prepared myself for what was going to be next.
There's no preparing for it.
No,
Like
but
you
I
think you can, but there's no real preparing.
this is true. This is
So
true.
beach activity.
I really sat on the beach by myself. I stared at the ocean because now you're not allowed to go into the ocean because I had just had surgery. I still, I'm sitting on the beach with the glue still from surgery. I'm still bruised. My whole world is flipped upside down. It's like, well, damn it, I'm gonna at least be tan. And I really just had my priorities where I needed them because
Well,
and one of the reasons I didn't like calling it a journey and everyone's like, "Oh, your cancer journey." And I was like, "I'm going to stop you right there because I was not going to be on cancer's time. I was not going to give cancer that much power over me in my life." And I decided I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I still have a life to live and cancer is going to be on my time, and I refuse to give up my personal power and my life to cancer. And I was gonna drive the bus the whole way. However I was gonna do it, I was gonna be the one in charge.
yeah, yeah. And I think, you're going to the beach to gear up was your way of having control because I know for me, I felt powerless, but I was like, that's not gonna happen for me. Like I set a plan and I know we've talked, so I know that you set a plan and so let's talk about that.
I did. And the beach, I from the time I was little, I feel very connected to the beach. It's a very spiritual grounding place for me. So I went really to breathe and to soak up as much energy from being there that I possibly could for whatever was going to be next. I knew what was going to be next, but you don't really know. And you really, in your head you make it out to be so horrific that you know there's no way. You've seen people go through it, you've talked to people that have gone through it, but there is no way to really prepare yourself for this. And I like to call myself a spontaneous preparer. Like I will pre-plan for things so I'm ready for any scenario, and there's really no way to do this. So what I decided was The only thing I had control over was me, and I was going to stand up for myself. I was going to preserve my energy and spend it where I wanted to, not where I didn't want to. And really I told my oncologist from the beginning, I understand you went to medical school. I understand this is the procedure, but the way this is going to work is I'm going to prioritize my well-being from the entire thing. And my sister was the first person I called when I after I made all the appointments, I called her first. And she was actually home with food poisoning and COVID. And I call her and I said, "You're never gonna believe this." She was like, "You got COVID?" I was like, "Nope, the other C." And she was like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Look, I was like, I'm not doing this sad. This was supposed to be my year. I just turned 50 a few months prior. Like, I had just gotten myself in the best shape of my life. I just got a puppy. Like, I just got out of a relationship that wasn't anything that I would call a relationship. I was like, this year was supposed to be fun. I refuse to do cancer sad. Like, I want to do it fun. I want to do it exciting. Okay, we'll make it fun. I said, and I was like, and I don't have time to lose my hair. She's like, well, we'll get cute hats. And then from there, we started talking about, well, what kind of hats? Like we decided on that first phone call that I was gonna have theme theme chemo. So we started picking out themes.
That's a way to dictate the entire course of the activity is to choose how you're going to present during um this. For me, it was ridiculous wigs, not normal at all. Every different color of the rainbow. So I love the themes. So talk about the themes.
So each week we had a different theme, and my sister was going to be my chemo sidekick because this cooling cap is a whole production, and you need somebody to sort of help you. And I was this my biggest fear was losing my hair. It was nothing else. That was my biggest fear. And when she came to the house, to practice, this cooling cap shows up in the mail in this kit. And I was like, we're going to watch the videos, we're going to practice. And if I lose my hair, I'm going to kill you. So that was the deal. She's my little sister. So she was used to that. So we we practiced, we watched the videos and we practiced and we put it on, and she's like, we got it. And I'm looking at myself in this thing, I'm crying, and I felt like I looked like Snoopy when he used to fly the helicopter like the Red Baron. And I was like, oh my God, I'm Snoopy. So that was our first theme. I was going to wear the helmet, and we went, on our favorite Amazon and got her the Snoopy like leather uh like
White cap.
helicopter helmet with the goggles, and we got her a yellow feather to shove in it so she could be Woodstock. And we found this picture of Snoopy and Woodstock in the helmets, and we did a side by side photo of me and her and Snoopy and Woodstock, and we did a whole who wore it better. And that was week 1.
That was week one. Wow. All right. What was week two like?
Week 2, well, we nailed week 1. We had our whole kit. And I also, for the regiment that I did, I had to not only be in the ice helmet, I had to freeze my hands and my feet in ice gloves and booties. So I'm in the chair, and we had the whole setup. We had the snacks, we had the helmet, we had the cooler with the gloves and the booties, we had an electric blanket. Like, we were uber prepared. So after we survived, and we had balloons, we decorated the little cubicle with boob balloons, and we just we made it pleasant as it can be when you're sitting there being poisoned. And we just laughed. And after the first day, we got home and she drove me home and we're sitting on the couch just looking at each other like, all right, we did it. Like that, we nailed it. Like now we know exactly what to expect because the biggest fear is not knowing what to expect. So now we know. They give you snacks. She was happy with the snacks. I was comfortable in the chair. Like we knew how this was going to go. And so the second week, we decided we nailed week one so well, we were going to do like Formula One, like race team, because we had it down to like precision, how good we had it. So that was week two.
So tell me more about the cooling cap. Like, how long did you have to wear it? Like, was it actually filled with ice? Like, what's the deal there?
Deal is so what happens is there's the cooling cap has an inner and an outer piece. The inner piece is this blue um piece that looks like it has coils, like it almost looks like space aged. And then on top of it is a neoprene stretchy thing that goes on top of it with all these laces that you now pull tight and strap under your chin, and it makes your face like it's crazy. So what happens is from there there's a tube and it's connected to an actual machine.
Okay.
And the machine, when you're hooked up to the machine then runs a solution through the blue part that tightens and gets cold and cools your scalp, I think to about 70 degrees. So you're sitting and the protocol to make sure that this works is you basically have to pre-cool your head for an hour. So the routine would be we would go into chemo, they would do the blood work. As soon as the blood work came back and they were like, "Oh, your blood work looks good. Now we can poison you." So before they poison you, they give you pre-meds. They give you the Benadryl, the anti-nausea, the anti-diarrheal, the um whatever else they give you. And that takes about 45 minutes to an hour. So before we started that, we would strap me into this helmet and we would pre-cool my head while that was going
And
on.
the gloves and the booties were
So I had two different chemo drugs. So my first chemo was a drug called Taxol. They wanted me initially to be on a different one, and I told them no, that I wasn't going to do that one because some of the side effects, one of the side effects was permanent hair loss. And I said, I'm not going to do that. And they said, well, the percentage is very small that happens. I said, I don't care if the percentage is 1%, I'm not doing it. And they said, okay. And they came back with a different regimen. And I think people forget that it's a I don't want to call it a co-creation, but you're allowed to tell the doctors, no, I'm not going to do this. Yes, I'm going to do this. I'm not comfortable with this, and really be part of the decision process. And they tell you what the standard of care is, and I said I don't give a shit what the standard of care is. I'm not a standard, I'm a person, and this is how we're going to do this. And I
yeah,
really you forget, but you have to advocate for yourself every step of the way. So
absolutely.
one of the drugs they had me on was called Taxol, and that particular one could cause neuropathy, which sounds as pleasant as it is. And one of the ways to possibly prevent it is to ice your hands and feet. And the whole thought behind icing your head and icing your hands and feet is, when you're cold, the blood isn't circulating to those areas as much. So it's sort of not allowing the drugs to go to that area as much as it would if you had full circulation at body temperature. So you just buy these, gloves and booties on Amazon, and you keep them in the freezer, and we would pack them in the cooler and bring them. And the first week I was so nervous about, I was like, I'm not gonna get neuropathy. Like I lift weights. I live alone. I need my hands. Like I'm
Yeah.
not, I can't risk that. So the first week, I think I was so hopped up on adrenaline from the second we left my house throughout the whole day. I had my hands and my feet in these gloves and booties for an hour, because that it took an hour for that one chemo to be administered. And I sat there like, I mean, your head's in the helmet, your hands in the things, and you're freezing. And I had an electric blanket and heating pad, and I'm shivering, and I was like, I got this. And I sat there not thinking, take my hands out for a few minutes to give myself a break, because they were really cold. Like if you ever need a good like ice pack for your lunch, I can give you the booty link, because and the hand link, because they were freezing for the entire time that I gave myself a little bit of frostbite. So we learned for week two, don't do that again. And it as the weeks went on, I could only sit with my hands and feet for so long. I would pull them out and take breaks. I would wear thin socks and really thin gloves that like people use to, check if there's dust and stuff in them, just to protect my hands. And I just couldn't believe that the first week I did it without a break. I mean, my adrenaline, I probably could have flipped a car. That's because I don't know how I did it still to this day.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I'm really thankful that you shared that because I didn't know any of what you just shared. Um, and I want to go back to a point that you made. Uh, You 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 spoke about being an active participant in your treatment when you talk to your providers, and a lot of people just do what the providers tell them to do without any questions, without any you have every right, and it is your responsibility to be an active participant in your care, knowing what's going on, knowing why things are being done. And if it doesn't feel right to you, you can say no. You have every right to do that. You also have rights to second opinions. You
Absolutely.
should be absolutely um, you should have absolute confidence in your entire medical team. So if you don't vibe with your oncologist, go find a different one. Like it's your life,
And
like literally.
it's
So
it's it's absolutely your life. And one of the, you walk into this, and nothing can prepare you for this. And my first one of my meetings with my surgeon, my sister was with me, and it's like you finish this meeting and it's very overwhelming, because especially with breast cancer, which is what I had, there's a million different types. So depending on what type you have, there's initials and protocols, and each one is different. And your whole world is flipped upside down, and so it's overwhelming to begin with. Then you walk out of this meeting, and one of the nurses comes, and it's like all of a sudden you're on this like weird like game show. That's how it felt. It was like, okay, here you go. here's a tote bag and here's a binder and there's books in there and here's your water bottle. And they all say breast cancer. And in case you forgot you had breast cancer, there's a little baggie of rubber bracelets. And if you really, 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 really want to know what's extra special about this, if you forget, there's nail files with the pink ribbon. So you will never forget that you are going through breast cancer here. And you walk out of the office with a bag and water bottles and books and binders and notes and pens and bracelets and shit. Like, did I just get cancer swag? Like, it was mind blowing.
I
And
I I didn't get that.
well, you can have some of mine because I got it everywhere. Like, I could open up a little, like, oh, you need breast cancer information or a nail file or a bracelet or a sparkly butterfly with a thing. I got you. So it it's it's just so much. And now you're part of like the medical merry-go-round where they're now scheduling appointments for you and funneling you from one place to the other place. And you have appointments scheduled where they didn't even ask you if you were available. They just made the appointment. And I got really annoyed because I was like, this isn't going to work for me. I already don't like to be on other people's time, to be obligated for people to, I don't like my routine to be adjusted, especially during the week. I go to the gym, I'm structured, I do things the way I like them. And I started saying, you know what? I'm not going to be able to make that appointment. And they would find something else, or this would be better for me. And I joined, so the cooling cap had a like a Facebook group of women that were using it, and I joined the Facebook group to really get like the tips and tricks that you really want to hear, like from the other women that are using it. Like, what are you doing? What worked? When did you wash your hair? What happened? Like the information you really really want to know. These women are extraordinary. And if a woman wants to know something, there is nothing on earth that will stop her from finding out. And the best tips and tricks came from this group. And I really picked and chose, okay, this makes sense to me, this doesn't. This I'm going to try, this sounds nutty. And you just create your own like tool bag from this. And I'm somebody, I've been a personal trainer and a nutrition consultant for over 20 years. Fitness and health is my life. I work with a gut health specialist. And as soon as I got diagnosed, we switched all my supplements to what would support me with cancer, what would be helpful. I kept eating the foods that I ate. And everybody in this group and everybody in every group is saying their oncologist doesn't allow them to, you can't take any supplements while you're on chemo. You can't take anything. My oncologist told me no. And then you can sort of see the women that listen to everything they're told and are just afraid, and the ones that are like, that question things. And I went in and one of my appointments before chemo started, and I said to my oncologist, I said, look, I said, this is my life. I take all these supplements, and I'm not asking you for permission to continue taking them. I'm letting you know that I'm going to continue taking them. Like, am I going to explode essentially when it mixes with chemo? Like, am I just going to
Yeah.
explode? And my oncologist was lovely enough that he actually looked into some of the supplements he wasn't sure about and came back to me and said there's no reason not to. And if something happens along the way with your blood work and we have to make an adjustment, we will do that then. And I truly believe that part of the reason I got through it the way I did and kept my hair, I was busy giving myself injections of GHK, which is a copper peptide, in my stomach every morning the entire time, which helps with your hair and your skin and your nails. And I did everything I could possibly do to maintain the things that were important to me, but also my blood work, because everybody tells you, oh, your immune system is going to crash and you're not going to be able to be around people and you can't do whatever it is. My immune system didn't go below normal until after week 9. And I said to my oncologist more than once, and the nurses, I'm like, why aren't you guys asking me what I'm doing? Why aren't you
They
trying to
can't.
find out so that you can tell other women that are struggling, you know what, this might benefit you while you're going through this process.
They can't. They have to go by what is the standard of care. They can't talk about spirituality. They can't talk about how all of these alternative wellness modalities could work with it. It's very, this is what's peer reviewed and this is what's not, and there is a very big dividing line between the two. But you bring up an excellent point. Um, with that, there are so many support groups on Facebook, um, for different kinds of cancer, different like when I was diagnosed back in 2007, there really wasn't that kind of support. There was a Gilda's Club, if you've heard of that, but other than that, there really wasn't any kind of, not that I was made aware of, and that's part of the problem too. Where you go, what institution you go to, what hospital system you get involved in, their resources could be completely different than the one 2 towns over. And
Yeah.
so that's a factor in deciding where you want your care. I understand that if you have insurance, you have to do in-network stuff. I get that, but there's a level of participation on your part that you should put in. And there's a lot I didn't know before I started, and there's a lot more I know now.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, fortunately, I have great insurance, so I got to really choose where I went. And I also am very fortunate to have gotten cancer in Maryland, where I have access to some of the best hospitals in the country. I'm picking between University of Maryland, Mercy, Johns Hopkins. So I have some of the best resources, but it, you know, it's still a skill, a culture, and a personality, meshing on who your team of people are going to be.
yeah,
And I didn't know initially about proton therapy. I didn't do traditional radiation. I ended up opting for proton therapy. And I was really, really lucky that that was available and that that was covered by insurance. And um, I was getting really upset sort of through the process that I thought that, and in a lot of people's cases, this is it, their decisions on their health and well-being have to be made based on what insurance will allow them to do.
yeah. Um, and getting things pre-authorized and pre-certified is a pain in the butt. Knowing what needs to be pre-authorized or pre-certified and what the difference is also a pain in the butt. I, you know, it's a contract. Like your insurance is a contract, and depending on where you're getting that from, the company dictates what goes into your plan. So they're not all created equal. There's big disparity in them, and it's kind of a nightmare for the consumer because they don't know these things. Like, remind me again what year you were diagnosed?
Um, 2022.
Okay. So
I'm
this
still
is
new at
recent,
this.
still recent. Okay. All right. I I was diagnosed back in 2007 and the protocols were a little different back then, although I don't think they have made a huge stride in the standard of care since then. Because when I was diagnosed, the American Cancer Society's statistics were 1 in 3, and now they're 1 in 2 will have some kind of cancer before they die. And that's it's going the wrong direction with as much money as we put into research. Like, what the fuck? Like, why is it going the wrong direction?
And here's the while I was going through this, my sister's best friend from like first grade was currently basically dying of breast cancer. She was in her like mid to late 40s, and she'd been battling it for 7 years.
Wow.
From my diagnosis until finishing, I believe 5 people younger than me in close proximity to me, maybe only removed by one person, were all diagnosed. I didn't have a genetic marker. Most of them didn't have the genetic marker. So while all this research is going into breast cancer, there's a lot of research and a lot of stuff that's not going into the preservatives in the foods that we're allowed to eat in this country, the products that we're using in this country. And this is probably going to be incredibly controversial, and I don't care, but I fully believe that a contributing, if not the main factor that I got breast cancer was because I had no genetic markers, was that was on birth control for a very long time, starting in I guess, the very late 80s, early 90s, before it was what it is now. And in my mid 40s, I did IVF, and um, all of the, hormones and things I was injecting myself with to try to have a
Yeah.
baby. And there's nobody that can tell me otherwise that that didn't play a factor, especially based on the way I live my life.
Yeah. Um, with the emphasis that they put on genetics, you would think that most of that is caused by genetics. It's not.
No.
It's like 5 to 8% of the cancers are genetic. The rest of it is environmental or toxins. So I think that's a whole bunch of the wizard behind the curtain, look over here kind of stuff going on, when we really do need to look at what we're putting in our bodies when it comes to the food that we're eating, as well as the products that we're using to clean ourselves, to clean our houses, from the whatever in the wallpaper, and the floor varnish, and the new car smell, like all of these factors, all of its chemicals.
And the really like infuriating pieces for me was the amount of women that are being diagnosed with extreme cases of cancer younger and younger. And not just that, but the way, you go in as a woman and you ask certain questions. Like, chemo is going to flip you up, down, and sideways. It doesn't matter how well you take care of yourself, it puts you into forced menopause. You lose, your hair, your eyebrows, your eyelashes. Like, nostril hair is a very underrated accessory. Like, the things that you don't expect happen to you. And then
Yeah,
you're left with these random side effects, and you're speaking to the doctors about it, and they say, well, you're 50 now, so weight gain, and or your
which is it's
hormones,
gaslighting.
or
That's gaslighty horse shit right there.
it's
That's what that
completely
is.
gaslighting. And excuse me.
Yeah, it's horrible when they say stuff like
And,
that to you.
It's horrible. And I had a reaction to one of the chemos and afterwards, and I'm the crazy person. I tracked my macros during chemo. Like I was going to be in charge of this. Sorry.
No, it's all right. Take another sip. Um, yeah, like keeping track. I recommend doing stuff like that and keeping track of the food you're eating, the supplement, like keeping track of everything so that you keeping track of your symptoms and your side effects, keeping track of all of that.
Well, I blew up with fluid afterwards. Like all of a sudden, I was swollen, I was puffy, and they basically tell you, I said, look, like, and I'm in tears because not just was my clothes not fitting and I was miserable, you don't feel good, your clothes now don't fit. And like I said, I watched what I ate during chemo. I exercised during chemo. Like I walked, I went to Pilates, like I stayed as active as I possibly could, as much as I possibly could. And not just because it helps with some of the side effects, but for my own, like, you are not derailing what matters to me. Like, this is who I am, cancer or not. And when they start telling you, well, you know, you're 50 now and menopause, and now they're talking about my area of expertise and they're wrong. And I used to fight with them. I used to tell them it was completely irresponsible to give women this information, making them feel like they have to settle. Just because even the healthiest woman going through menopause is not stuck with weight gain. It is a load of crap. The reason is because if you don't know how to tell this woman what changes to make, how to eat, or what lifestyle to do to manage the hormones, regardless of her age, that's not her problem. That's yours. And having women feel like they have to settle, and so many women go in thinking, you know, this is what everybody says is going to happen. This is what's going to happen. So now I just have to believe them. And I just think to myself, I never believed them. I learned, I knew better, and the information I didn't know, I continued to seek out. And I asked them, like in tears, will I ever be able to lose this weight? Will I be able to do it? And my oncologist looked at me and said, probably not by, you know, probably not by this summer. This is when I finished everything the end of January 2023. And somewhere a few months after that, my oncologist said, you probably won't be able to do it by this summer. So in my head, I heard, okay, hold my beer. And I did it. And not only did I get to my pre-chemo weight, I got 5 pounds less than my pre-chemo weight, still not feeling good, still not 100%, still not killing myself, because I followed the information that works.
Yeah.
And how dare them? Because if I would have believed what they told me, I would still be sitting there unhappy.
Yeah.
And and people just buy into whatever they're told. And I understand a lot of people just don't know, but look for it. If you want something, you look for it. You look for the answers.
We're taught and we're conditioned from a young age to respect the knowledge that a doctor has and to believe what they say. What I say to that is it's called a medical practice for a reason. They are practicing. Yes, they're educated. I'm
Sure.
not saying they're not, but there's so much to know. And if you're an expert in oncology, you're not going to be an expert in hormonal health. You're just
No.
not, right? I mean, you might be, but the odds of
No.
that are really so instead of gaslighting, they should be like, I don't have the answer to that. But for a doctor to say that, like they don't say that. I don't have the answer to that. You should see this kind of specialist. I mean, that's what should be part of the standard of care
A-
is
abs-
telling you who to
absolutely.
go to.
And I had enough doctor clients over the years as a trainer and a nutritionist, and that became friends. And every single one of them will flat out tell you, we get one nutrition class, maybe. They don't know
Yeah,
nutrition, they know their specialty, they treat their specialty. And one of my biggest gripes is they don't treat the human being. They treat they treat the thing. And I am not a thing. None of us are just the thing.
yes,
And then you have, well, my nutritionist said, well, I can tell you right here, your nutritionist, this information is dated, this isn't correct, this isn't
yes,
right. And it's the amount of information that we're being given by some of the specialists isn't even correct.
yep,
And it's just so important for everybody to remember, you don't have to settle. It's not the end of the road, and maybe it'll take a little bit longer to find the answers, but they're out there. And really advocate for yourself. Like my immunotherapy, I was getting immunotherapy, which is an injection you get every 3 weeks. I started it on my first day of chemo, and it was supposed to be every 3 weeks for a year. Well, I was just shy of 6 months. I was still going through radiation proton therapy, which was so not pleasant. And I went in for my injection and to meet with the oncologist. And I had made a decision that I was not going to continue with immunotherapy. I was finished. I was finished being poisoned. I wanted my system to start getting back to its norm. I wanted it to start healing and repairing. And I wasn't going to put any outside uncontrollable thing in it anymore. And I was bracing myself to have an argument with him. Like I was going to do what I wanted, but I was bracing myself. And I went in and he said, "All right." He's like, "You're almost at 6 months." He's like, "Really, the difference," and I had looked this up already, so I knew, but he says to me, the difference between stopping at 6 months and stopping at a year is only like 0.4%. 0.4%. I looked at him. I said, "I know." I said, "I looked that up." I said, "That's like dirt in your petri dish." I said, "That's bullshit. That's
yes,
bullshit. Why do you continue with people for a year if stopping at 6 months is fine?" And then you get the bill, and every injection, they're billing the insurance company $18,000.
yeah, yeah. I when I went through my journey, I do consider mine a journey because it was almost a year long and it was particularly brutal. I stopped looking at the explanation of benefits when the insurance company paid out. Not was billed, but when they paid out $1 million. And I was nowhere near done. So, like, there's no way I would have been able to afford that without insurance.
No, no, I mean, it's insane. And the hard part is for me is I am now left with issues created by, and I'm sure you are, as most people are, I am left with issues created by treatment that was supposed to help me.
Yes.
So now once a week I'm at acupuncture, I'm at physical therapy, I have to start going to the lymphedema clinic, I need to go for massage therapy. And while people says, "Oh, that sounds nice, a massage," it's not nice. It's so painful that you can't even relax because the scar tissue from radiation has attached itself
Yeah.
to my skin, and my ribs, so my ribs don't move when I breathe. I also, this is a fun one, I also go and get prolotherapy, which my oncologist didn't even know what it was, and luckily I had been doing it prior to all of this for a shoulder injury. And we just continued with it. It's these injections that I get directly into my breast and the scar tissue. to try to break up some of the scar tissue and rehydrate it so I can get some movement. Insurance doesn't cover all of those things, or they
No,
don't cover it to the degree that you need it. And the doctor that does the prolotherapy for me, she says, you know, a lot of women that get mastectomies have this issue, and they don't even know that this treatment exists, and their chest hurts like you're saying, and their doctors send them to pulmonologists because they think it's a chest or a lung issue, and they put them on asthma medication, which is not the problem or what they need.
no, there's a lot of medical misdiagnosis all over the place. Yeah. All right. Well, Shira, I really, really appreciate you coming over here and sharing your story. That's quite incredible. You have talked about things that nobody knows about, which is beautiful. And I appreciate you sharing that.
Oh, I'm so glad. Like, and I said from day one, if whatever I went through can help one person, like you know, that's why I'm here.
Yep. That is exactly why I do this. If there's something that we talk about on the show that helps one person, and I know that it does because the entire point of this is to be the resource I needed and didn't have when I was going through mine. And yeah, so again, thank you very much.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here with everybody. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And until next time, Cancer Warriors, go get your annual exams. They're important.